Forças russas lançaram um ataque contra posições ucranianas a partir de várias direções. Alguns tanques equipados com proteção anti-drones moveram-se gradualmente em direção à vila.
February 24th, 2022. As Russian tanks rolled across Ukraine's borders, military experts worldwide predicted a swift victory. The invading force had overwhelming firepower, thousands of tanks, artillery pieces, and armored vehicles. On paper, it should have been a massacre. But something extraordinary was about to happen in the Ukrainian forests. Meet Andriy. He's 23 years old, a computer science student from Kyiv who 6 months ago was debugging code and playing video games. Today, he's piloting a first-person view drone through enemy lines, hunting multi-million-dollar Russian tanks with nothing but a joystick and nerves of steel. The first time I saw one of our drones take out a Russian tank, Andriy would later recall, I couldn't believe it. This little plastic bird, something I could build in my garage, just destroyed something that took years to manufacture. As Russian forces launched their assault from multiple directions, Ukrainian defenders found themselves outgunned, but not outthought. While enemy tanks equipped with anti-drone protection, metal cages and jammers, slowly advanced toward villages, Ukrainian artillery bought precious time with precise strikes. But the real game changer was already taking to the skies. Several drone crews launched their birds, as they affectionately called them, into the morning sky. The hunt had begun. The first kamikaze drone pilot took the initiative, flying out to intercept the lead Russian tank. Lady Luck smiled on him that day. The drone hit its target exactly as planned. One down, but this wasn't beginner's luck. This was the result of months of desperate innovation. Behind the scenes, in basements and abandoned warehouses across Ukraine, teams of engineers, gamers, and ordinary citizens were working around the clock. They were taking commercial racing drones, the kind used for weekend competitions, and turning them into precision weapons of war. The modification process was surprisingly simple yet ingenious. Racing drones designed for speed and agility were fitted with small explosive charges. The key wasn't the size of the explosion, it was the precision. These pilots, many of whom had spent years mastering drone racing, could thread their aircraft through the smallest openings in enemy armor. The second Russian tank attempted to maneuver around its disabled counterpart, but another FPV drone was already inbound. Strike two. But destroying two vehicles wouldn't be enough. The Russians were learning, adapting, evolving their defenses. What the Ukrainian pilots didn't know was that they were about to face their greatest challenge yet. War has always been a contest of innovation versus counter-innovation. For every sword, someone invents a shield. For every tank, someone builds an anti-tank weapon. But what was happening in Ukraine was different. It was evolution at the speed of war. The Russians unveiled their answer, the turtle tanks.
Our cover report on Fine Print tells you how, amidst exploding drones and relentless assaults, Moscow has unveiled a peculiar yet effective solution called the turtle tank.
These mechanical monsters were covered in dense networks of metal cables, turning sleek war machines into something that looked like they'd been wrapped in a giant spider web. It was crude, but it was effective. The first time we saw one of those cage tanks, recalls Maxim, a drone operator from Kharkiv, we thought it was some kind of joke. But when our first drone bounced right off, we realized the game had changed. Penetrating these new defenses required up to 10 drones per target. But here's the shocking math that kept Ukrainian commanders optimistic. Even 10 $400 drones, $4,000 total, was still far cheaper than the $3 million tank they were destroying. The economic warfare was as brutal as the physical combat. Russia could build tanks, but could they build them faster than Ukraine could build drones? The answer was becoming terrifyingly clear. Just when military analysts thought they understood this new form of warfare, Ukrainian engineers dropped another bombshell: fiber optic drones. Unlike their radio-controlled cousins, these silent hunters trailed a thin fiber optic cable behind them, a technological umbilical cord that made them immune to electronic jamming. They couldn't fly far, but in dense forest where radio signals died, they were ghosts in the machine. Picture this. Deep in enemy territory, a Russian ammunition stockpile sits hidden beneath camouflaged netting. The soldiers think they're safe, invisible to conventional surveillance. They have no idea that a Ukrainian operator lying motionless in the underbrush 500 meters away is threading a fiber optic drone through the trees towards their position. The pilot approaches with surgical precision, striking where the enemy least expects it. The explosion echoes through the forest, another supply line severed, another piece of the Russian war machine dismantled by a weapon that costs less than a smartphone. But the most chilling innovation was yet to come. War is often about patience, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Ukrainian drone pilots had turned patience into an art form with their most terrifying innovation yet: the sleeper drone. These modified FPV drones, equipped with landing legs, could be flown to strategic ambush points and powered down, conserving battery while waiting for targets. Like mechanical predators, they lay dormant beside roads, bridges, and supply routes, waiting. Imagine driving down what you think is a safe road, only to have the bushes beside you suddenly come alive with the whir of rotors. That's the psychological warfare these sleeper drones created. Nowhere was truly safe. In one heart-stopping incident, a Ukrainian driver spotted such a ground mine at the very last moment. The drone was attempting to take off just as his vehicle approached. A split-second decision, a swerve to the side, and the drone was neutralized. A few more meters and the outcome would have been tragic. But not everyone was so lucky. Behind every destroyed tank, every successful mission, every technological breakthrough, there were human beings making split-second decisions that meant the difference between life and death. Both sides were now actively hunting drone pilots. These young operators, working at what they thought was a safe distance from the front lines, discovered that in this new kind of war there was no such thing as a rear area. The most dangerous moments came during rotations, when crews had to move their equipment to new positions. In one terrifying incident, Ukrainian forces spotted a Russian FPV drone headed directly toward their vehicle just in time. The scramble to evacuate was desperate, chaotic. Soldiers diving from a moving vehicle as a mechanical assassin bore down on them. You never get used to it, admits Alexander, a 19-year-old drone operator. Every day you know that somewhere out there, someone is trying to hunt you down. It's like playing a video game, except when you lose, you don't respawn. The psychological toll was immense, but the war continued its relentless evolution. Not every victory belonged to the drones. Sometimes the old ways proved just as effective as the new. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone, not a kamikaze but a surveillance model, spotted a Russian Kamaz military truck hidden in a forest. This specialized vehicle was designed for towing heavy artillery and transporting ammunition. In other words, it was a high-value target. But instead of sending in the drones, Ukrainian forces opted for a more traditional approach: artillery. From 13 kilometers away, a distance so great the Russian soldiers probably never heard the guns fire, a single shell arced through the sky. The shell struck the rear compartment with surgical precision, immediately igniting the ammunition stored inside. What followed was a fireworks display that could be seen for miles, a column of fire and smoke that marked the end of another piece of Russian military hardware. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on military historians. In a war defined by technological innovation, sometimes the most effective weapon was still a well-aimed artillery shell. As footage of Ukraine's drone revolution spread across social media and news networks worldwide, military establishments from Washington to Beijing began asking the same urgent questions. If teenagers with modified racing drones could destroy main battle tanks, what did that mean for the future of warfare? Defense contractors who had spent decades perfecting million-dollar missile systems watched in fascination and horror as $400 drones achieved similar results. Military academies began rewriting their curricula. War colleges started teaching courses on asymmetric drone warfare. General Marcus Thompson, a Pentagon analyst, summed up the paradigm shift. We're witnessing the democratization of precision warfare. The barriers to entry have collapsed. Any nation, any group, any individual with basic engineering skills can now field weapons that were once the exclusive domain of superpowers. Online forums exploded with discussions about drone modifications, tactics, and countermeasures. YouTube channels dedicated to FPV racing suddenly found themselves inadvertently teaching military tactics to millions of viewers. The line between entertainment and warfare had never been thinner. The world watched in awe and terror as Ukraine's drone pilots became unlikely celebrities. Social media accounts posting successful drone strikes gained millions of followers. Fundraising campaigns raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy more drones for Ukrainian forces. But the public reaction wasn't uniformly positive. Ethicists raised troubling questions about the gamification of warfare. When war looks like a video game, when pilots can destroy enemy equipment from the comfort of what looks like a gaming setup, what happens to our understanding of the moral weight of taking lives? Dr. Sarah Chin, a warfare ethicist at MIT, warned, "We're entering an era where the psychological barriers to warfare are being systematically dismantled. When you can wage war with a joystick, the threshold for conflict drops dramatically." Meanwhile, in workshops and garages around the world, a new generation of innovators was taking notes. The technology demonstrated in Ukraine wasn't proprietary or classified. Much of it was built from commercially available components. The genie was out of the bottle and there was no putting it back. As we conclude our journey into Ukraine's drone revolution, one thing becomes crystal clear. We've witnessed the birth of a new era in human conflict. The age of the tank, which dominated battlefields for over a century, may be drawing to a close. In the skies above Ukraine, teenage pilots armed with devices that cost less than a laptop have rewritten the rules of war. They've proven that in the 21st century, victory doesn't always go to the side with the biggest guns or the most expensive equipment. It goes to the side that can innovate fastest, adapt quickest, and think most creatively about the tools at their disposal. But this revolution extends far beyond the battlefields of Eastern Europe. Today, every military in the world is grappling with the same question. How do you defend against an enemy that can turn any commercial drone into a weapon? How do you protect multi-million-dollar assets from threats that cost pocket change to deploy? The silent hunters of Ukraine have shown us the future of warfare. It's smaller, cheaper, more precise, and more accessible than anything we've ever seen before. Whether that future terrifies or inspires you might depend on which side of the joystick you're on. The skies will never be the same again.